Hi, this is Benedict. Remember the Adam and Eve story from the book of Genesis? Eve foolishly listened to the serpent, and both Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit in the center of the Garden of Eden and began to see the good and evil. Like who? Like God. Oh, there was a big no-no. 'Tis is the original sin and the fall of man. So what good and evil did Adam and Eve see? Genesis gives us only one example. Adam and Eve were ashamed of being naked and covered their genitals. And Eve's breasts, maybe. Let's think about that for a minute. Ate fruit, saw each other's genitals, felt ashamed and covered them up. That means, ergo, therefore, genitals are evil. By extension, sex is evil. Huh? So sex is the ultimate universal evil? Why doesn't Genesis give us any other examples of good and evil? Fellow discombobulated, disconcerted, and befuddled average people lost in our spiritual journeys. Welcome to Average Man's Spiritual Quest. I'm your host, Benedict. If you enjoy talking about our confusions on this channel, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like and notification buttons. Jordan Peterson at University of Toronto, a famous YouTube personality, said not too long ago that he learned as a young scholar from Jeffrey Burton Russell, an eminent historian, something like this: to be enlightened, you must distinguish tragedy from evil. And how are tragedy and evil different? Well, tragedy is tragedy, but evil has voluntarism in it. In other words, malintent. I arrived at the same insight many years ago. Not that I'm trying to tell you that I'm a profound and deep thinker like those two gentlemen, or anything like that. But, of course, if you analyze tragedy and its causes, you're bound to find some evil down the line somewhere. But ultimately, Jeffrey Burton Russell is right. If you don't distinguish tragedy from evil, then you continue to make a conceptual error in accurately evaluating evil, because we all get emotionally hung up and confuse anything not good as evil. So the question is, our genitals and the pleasure we derive from them, are they tragedies or evil? I think you would agree with me that it's probably not tragedy. Maybe getting unwanted pregnancy and ruining your life will be tragedy. But the genitals and the sex are not tragedies. So then, are they evil? If so, why? 'Cause they feel good? 'Cause they make us lust after the opposite sex? Maybe even same sex for some of you out there. Feeling good and lusting after sexy guys or sexy girls, is that inherently bad? Why? If you force yourself on somebody, yeah, that's bad. If you get venereal disease in the process, yeah, that's pretty bad too. But those are tragedies. Those things don't make it evil, inherently speaking. Reading the Adam and Eve story, we get this feeling that sexual morality or ethics is something a priori. It's a philosophy talk, meaning inalterable, universal, preexisting truth, independent of our wisdom generated from our life experiences. Is it though? Then the question arises, why do different cultures have different attitudes about sex? Many primitive cultures don't seem to have any big hang-up about sex. Also, why do many different religions have totally different attitudes about sex? Take Hinduism, for instance. One of the four grand tenets of Hinduism is kama, not karma. Kama, meaning pleasure, happiness, including sexual desires. So, pleasure is a legitimate part of human existence, according to them. But then Hinduism is really all over the place. It's so vast that some schools say sex is just for procreation within marriage. But many other schools celebrate not only sex but orgasm. Ever heard of Kama Sutra? Ever seen photos of the Khajuraho temple? Naughty, naughty, I bet you have. Well, all in all, though, there's no sweeping prohibition on sexual pleasure. It is just not sin, as Christianity would have us believe. Likewise, Buddhism, the only admonition we get is, well, enjoy sex responsibly and appropriately. Even marriage as an institution is not a prerequisite for having sex in Buddhism, as far as I know. But if you indulge too much in sex, chances are that you're blowing your chance to reach enlightenment in this lifetime. If you're gonna be reborn over and over again and go through the misery of life, well, it's up to you. Back to Christianity, though. Did you know that Jesus Christ himself said very little about sex? He only said something like, lust is bad. And he didn't say a word about homosexuality. If you ask me, what I can gather from this is that Jesus probably expected us to enjoy sex responsibly and appropriately, like the Buddhists. Coming back to the Adam and Eve story. So Adam and Eve realized the fun organs that they have between their legs by eating the forbidden fruit. So God punished them, right? How did he punish them? First of all, for women folks, making childbirth excruciatingly painful. And by throwing them out of Garden of Eden. And by making them have to toil just to eat and survive. And get this is the important part. God said to Eve, representing all womankind, man will rule over you. Man will rule over you. Talk about grand justification for misogyny, if you're into that. Let's call a spade, okay? Genesis is not history. It is mythology. An interesting and valuable mythology, just like the Chinese and Japanese, Korean creation stories. Fun and valuable cultural legacy, but that's what they are, not ultimate truths. As to the big hang-up on sex in Christianity, this story of Adam and Eve reflects the culture of the Israelites or the neighboring tribes in that region of the world, according to historians, not God's anger at us for having fun with our genitals. But then, of course, our friend Paul of Tarsus came along and he took upon himself to annotate Jesus' teachings for us, imbuing in it his take on sex according to his culture that he was familiar with, that of the Israelites that he belonged to. And about 300 years later, Augustine of Hippo came along and forever made sexuality or any sexual pleasure indisputably forever evil. To such an extent that later generations of theologians proclaimed that any sexual position other than the missionary position is evil, a big no-no. Why? Because it may make you feel better. Let alone oral sex or any other kind of sex. Oh, by the way, none of the Korean, Chinese, Japanese creation stories say sex is bad. I don't know of any. In fact, sex is part of those stories sometimes. Go figure. Well, you have heard me talk today like a smart alecky trial lawyer in a jury trial. But seriously, what do you think as esteemed jurors? Thank you. I'll see you next time.